500 years after her epic life and tragic death, the beheaded Tudor Queen Anne Boleyn still sparks controversy and intense interest. Here are 10 captivating reasons why. Welcome to History Tower. Number 1. Dark humor. On several occasions, Anne Boleyn seems to have shown dark humor in order to cope with extremely stressful situations and even laughed about her own misery. On the 1st December 1533, the year that she had married the psychopathic and narcissistic King Henry VIII, they held a banquet, and the king went away to introduce an important guest to his queen, but when he spotted a pretty young lady, he started to flirt with her and forgot his diplomatic purpose. Queen Anne started to laugh about it, which almost caused an international incident. As the French ambassador thought she had laughed about him. Anne had to explain that she had been laughing about her husband's flirtation. Not even 3 years later, she became a prisoner in the Tower of London and was on the threat of the death penalty, which caused her to famously joke about her death. Her enemies would remember her as La Reine sans tête, or Queen Anne the Headless. When the constable of the tower, Sir William Kingston, had taken her into custody, she asked him, "Master Kingston, shall I die without justice?" To which he replied in monarchic propaganda, "The poorest subject the king had justice," which made Anne Boleyn burst out in laughter. While she was awaiting her execution after having been condemned by trial, speaking to Master Kingston again, she joked about her quick decapitation. "I heard say the executioner was very good, and I have a little neck." She put her hands around her throat and started laughing. The 5 courtiers that had been charged as being the queen's lovers and accomplices in plotting the king's death, among them the queen's brother George, had also been imprisoned in the Tower of London. When Anne asked who made their beds, her attendant answered that nobody did, whereupon Anne joked with the wordplay that if they couldn't make their pallets, instead they could make ballads. Her aunt served as one of her attendants and answered, "Such desire as you have had to such tales has brought you to this." This suggests that the queen had stepped over the social norms of the courtly love games and had made herself look suspicious with her witty tongue prior to her arrest. Number 2. Musical talent. Anne had been noticed as a captivating singer and great lute player. She had received her training and education at the Habsburg court in France. The Archduchess Margaret of Austria had been one of her role models and was famous for her musical talent, especially as a keyboard player. Her Netherlandish organist Henri Bredemer had worked as a music teacher for the French royal family, and Professor Eric Ives suggests that he might have given Anne music lessons as well. The French diplomat Lancelot de Carl also pointed out her creative talent. She knew perfectly how to sing and dance, to play the lute and other instruments. Even her Catholic enemies wrote about her talent for playing several instruments and her love for dances, which was a common practice at court. Her trial revealed that she had been dancing with her ladies and courtiers in her bedchamber. She also enjoyed listening to music. Allegedly, a verse that had been written by the king was also sung to Anne. She had paid for the decoration of a pair of clavichords, and there is a small chance that Queen Elizabeth's virginals in the Victoria and Albert Museum had once been played on by Anne, although during conservation an inscription of the year 1594 has been found, which might suggest the contrary. What is certain is that she had owned a choir manuscript which she had signed before she became queen. Number 3. Graceful Behaviour. While Anne was receiving her training as a maid of honor in France, her intelligence, readiness of mind, and grace started to attract attention. The regent Margaret of Austria wrote a letter to Anne's father Thomas, thanking him for sending Anne over because she found her to be so bright and pleasant for her young age. She seems to have learned French in a short amount of time. After years of training in France, Anne entered the English court where she stood out. The Carls mentioned that for her behavior, manners, attire, and tongue, she excelled them all. George Cavendish, the biographer of Cardinal Wolsey, explained that the reasons she stood out from the other ladies at court were her excellent grace and behavior. During Anne's fall, Thomas Cranmer, whom she had helped to become Archbishop of Canterbury, dared to mention in a letter to her husband the king, who at that time resented Anne, "I have never had better opinion of woman than I had of her." His letter was brave, but it didn't help to save any of the 6 lives in those bloody days of May 1536. Number 4. Witty Tongue. Anne became famous for her bold remarks and bright wit. Anne's every word has been interpreted from many different perspectives. After analyzing her words and behavior, the conclusion that Anne Boleyn must have been an extrovert seems plausible. As an introvert, I've wondered several times why she would behave so brave and outspoken and would often be noticed. Her standard biographer, Professor Eric Ives, has also described her husband Henry VIII as an extrovert, which might have been one of the reasons why they had felt attracted to each other in the beginning. Number 5. Passion for gaming. Anne Boleyn enjoyed playing cards, gambling on sport games, and engaging in sport activities herself. George Wyatt reported one occasion when she was playing a game of cards with her predecessor, Queen Catherine of Aragon. Even at the end of the 16th century, the name of this card game had already been lost, but the major rule was that one round would stop when a king and a queen were shown at the same time. Queen Catherine noticed that her maid of honor Anne was often drawing a king and said, "My Lady Anne, you have good hap to stop at a king, but you are not like others. You will have all or none." Allegedly, they used to play a game of cards often, especially when the king had become interested in Anne, in order to make excuses to withdraw her from his company. In 1532, the year before Anne was crowned queen, she had played the card game Pope Julius with the king, which was an early version of the card game Commerce, and Henry had lost £50 to Anne. When Anne had become queen and was in the usual seclusion as she was expecting her baby, she received 2 folding tables as gifts. One was a breakfast table and the other one for playing cards. She has also been noticed as being athletic and engaged in hunting trips just like her husband. When Anne was arrested as queen on the 2nd of May 1536, she was engaged in a gambling bet over a tennis game which she was watching in Greenwich Palace. As a prisoner in the Tower of London, she mentioned that she would have won the bet.